Hey, I'm Jana, the little sister.
And I'm Jeff, her big brother. Welcome to Sibling Rivalry, a podcast about our favorite sport, baseball.
This week on Sibling Rivalry Baseball, we crack the code and go behind the scenes of baseball's unwritten rules.
That's right. We head to the back alleys and shady side of the mound. But first, the SRBB headlines.
A salute to the Negro Leagues game will be played September 22nd. The Kansas City Royals will wear the 1945 Monarchs home uniform, while the St. Louis Cardinals will wear the 1930 St. Louis Stars away uniform.
Coming into the season, only numbers 86, 89, and 92 had never been used in the major leagues. The Cardinals used 86 and 92 for two of their call-ups this year. Miguel Yajure, number 89. He is the answer to the trivia question, is who got the last unused number.
A one-of-a-kind Mike Trout baseball card set a record as the highest-selling sports card of all time, selling for $3.9 million. The 2009 Bowman Chrome Draft Prospects Superfractor signed rookie card sold at Golden Auctions online, eclipsing the previous record, which was set in 2016 in the sale of a 1909 Honus Wagner T206 card for $3.12 million.
MLB announced the teams for the 2021 Little League Classic in Williamsport, Pennsylvania on Sunday, August 22nd. The Angels and Indians. Players will attend Little League World Series games during the day and then play that evening at historic Bowman Field. You can find these and past week's headlines on our website, siblingrivalrybb.com. Remember to rate and subscribe wherever you listen, and tell a friend to listen to the Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast. Welcome to the 22nd episode of Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast. We're kind of in a weird spot right now because we're halfway through the 2020 season with 1 month to go. But if we were in a regular season, we'd be about 22 weeks in and only 1 month to go. This last week, there were odd things happening all over the league, which made us start thinking about these invisible guidelines that seem to be all over in life. Like, life is full of all these unwritten rules. When the host starts cleaning up at the party, it's time to leave. And then don't take the last of anything when offered or in a group. Just say, no, I'm good. And in fact, there's a Taco Bell commercial where they kind of even talk about, don't take the fully loaded chip. Don't eat all the guacamole. Don't take the last one. Buy your own box of nachos and you solve that problem. Even golf. Golf says it has unwritten rules, but what I've noticed is mostly they're posted on the wall by the clubhouse before you go out there, like fix your divots, rake the bunkers, the sand after you trump through it, things like that. All that's listed somewhere on the rules or on the scorecard or wherever. So it's not like there's that many, but there are some unwritten rules, like don't talk to another player's ball when they hit it. Don't talk to it telling it to go left or right. Don't do that. Don't talk at all. In fact, golf is mostly a silent sport. Don't talk when people are swinging. Don't talk when, just don't move. There's common sense ones. Don't walk in the putt line, and wait till you get to the clubhouse to settle any wagers. There's a lot of unwritten rules in life and in sports. Baseball seems to have a lot of them. And in the last week, the unwritten rules of baseball came up when Fernando Tatis Jr. came up in the 8th inning versus the Rangers, bases loaded, 7-run lead, and then on a 3-0 count, tattoos one into the right field bleachers for a grand slam, which led to a whole nother event that we'll talk about later when it comes to the Padres and Tatis. Apparently, Chris Woodward, the Texas manager, was very upset by this. He took it personally. You're not supposed to swing on a 3-0 pitch when you're up by whatever mythical number of runs. And I think he was just embarrassed personally. Even the Padres manager, Jace Tingler, was like, well, he missed a sign. He probably shouldn't have done that. Fernando Tatis even apologized.
When I was doing research about these unwritten rules, it says don't swing if you're ahead of the count 3-0 unless you're sure you can launch the ball into the stands. So Fernando Tatis must have known he could launch it into the stands, so he took it. So he didn't need to apologize.
I think the bigger thing was that it felt like they were running up the score. And
True.
And it was an embarrassment. Hey, we're gentlemen here. We don't run up the score. And Jace Tingler said, we weren't trying to run up the score. It just, you know what? How about your pitcher makes a better pitch on 3-0 or isn't 3-0, right? And then also in unwritten rule fashion, Ian Jabot, the relief pitcher for the Rangers, promptly threw at Manny Machado because he had to retaliate for his team being shown up by Fernando Tatis Jr. So Chris Woodward was fine with the unwritten rules when it suited him. So what do you think of this whole situation?
I think it's silly. I go back to like what I said with the research that I did. I did this deep research, and it said if it's 3-0, if you think you can hit it over the wall, then do it. And Fernando Tatis Jr. must have thought, he probably saw the sign, but he's Fernando Tatis Jr. Have you seen him play? He just does what he wants pretty much. And he makes some pretty spectacular. Yes, and he makes spectacular plays. I know the beanball is always been, and that's probably one of the oldest unwritten rules of baseball. If a player on your team gets hit by a pitch, or if your team's shown up or the player's shown up in any way, then you're going to get hit. I think most people know that. It's not a big deal. And it's Machado. That's okay.
Yeah, I figured you'd be okay with that. It goes to another one of those unwritten rules about admiring your home runs. It says don't admire your home runs. There's a lot of pitchers. I think Don Drysdale, Hall of Fame Dodger pitcher, probably beaned more people because they say he was mean on the mound. And you stop to look at your home run, the next guy's getting hit, or the next time you come up, you're getting hit. And, it's kind of funny because there's an unwritten rule that says never let the score influence the way you manage. Wouldn't that contradict everything that we just talked about?
Yeah.
I looked at all of the different ones that I could find as well. What are some of your favorites from the unwritten rules?
Don't steal bases when you have a lead. Stealing a base when the opposition has no chance of a comeback is just flat out rude. And I went back and I was looking to see if there was something that happened that really highlighted this rule. And it was Michael Jordan playing in the minor league, and his team was up 11-0, and he stole third base, I believe. And then Terry Francona, who was his manager at the time, had to pull him aside and say, okay, we don't do that.
Right. This isn't like the NBA where you just go for the throat constantly. You've already won.
He was dunking on third base, I guess.
Right,
in Michael Jordan fashion.
Well, I was thinking about that, things like that to show up the other players. And we were talking about admiring your home run. And then, of course, now bat flips kind of fall into that same category. But then just was it within the last couple of seasons, Major League Baseball had that whole let the kids play.
Right.
Just get out of the way and let them be. And I think bat flips have become an accepted part of the game, even though that's showing somebody up. So is it okay if somebody bat flips for you to throw at them later?
I guess it's the trajectory of the bat, the style that he did it within. I don't know. One of the things, too, I looked at was don't automatically swing at the first pitch. I went back and looked at a game with the Dodgers and the Padres. Chris Haddock on the mound, first pitch. Mookie Betts is a first pitch hitter, and he hit a home run. So I'm good with that.
Corey Seager's another one that does a lot of that first pitch when you talk about the Dodgers. Yep. Yeah, when I started looking through a bunch of these, a lot of them are like common sense things. Like, don't give up a home run on an 0-2 count. Or with 2 outs even. Duh. Don't play against the percentages. That seems pretty much common sense. There's a lot of them like that. And then there's some that, everybody knows that are more superstition than unwritten rules, like never talk to the pitcher during a no-hitter and don't mention it.
Yeah. You don't talk about it, but is it just in the dugout Do the announcers talk about it? Do they talk about it in the stands? Or is everybody on edge because they know what's going on, but nobody says anything? It's very quiet, almost as like in golf, just watching what's going on.
This is baseball's golf moment.
It is. I've seen Oral Hershiser and Joe Davis. They do that quite a bit, where they'll say the opposite of something, like, it would be really nice if this happened. And sometimes it does happen, but then sometimes they jinx it and nothing happens. But in the no-hitter, that's always been the unwritten rule, is especially in the dugout. You don't talk to the pitcher. Nobody mentions it. No, you're all thinking about it. And obviously, as a defensive player, when you're going out, you don't want to be the one that messes up that no-hitter.
And another thing about no-hitters is, and I'm not sure if when it gets to this point, because I don't think it matters early in the game when you don't really know that it's a true no-hitter, but don't bunt to break up a no-hitter.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So, if it's the bottom of the ninth, you don't do that. But to me, it's like, well, but is my goal to win, or is it to just go ahead and get in it? Because at that point, I might as well just say, everybody, look, just go up there. We want to be part of a no-hitter. This will be cool. Just put the pad on your shoulder and don't swing.
Yeah, I saw that too, where if you bunt to break up a no-hitter, then you're just being mean. It's rude. But then I also saw where if a hitter gets hit by a ball, you don't rub the area like on your arm, because it makes you look weak to the other team. But I don't know that that's true, because I've seen Justin Turner, who gets hit a lot, and he'll, not that he rubs it, but he'll kind of like grimace a little, and then he takes his base. I don't think that he looks weak to the opposing.
I think it depends
pitcher.
on where you get hit. If it's someplace that, like, I've seen players that don't wear like those elbow pads get hit in the elbow. And it's like, you hit your funny bone. It takes you out for a little bit. It may not be season-ending injury. If you get hit in the head and you reach up and grab your head, I
would think that'd be a normal reaction. Right? Now, MLB is breaking an unwritten rule by putting the tying or go-ahead run on base. That's what's happening when we go into innings. So maybe they are fulfilling the let the kids play pain.
Yeah, that could be true, because that's what they're doing. You're right. Yeah, never walk that, you don't walk somebody when there's somebody on first, not intentionally. There was one that I did that I've seen happen a couple of times that came up when I was looking through. Don't step on or run across the pitcher's mound. So like, let's say you get out at first base and you're running back to the third base dugout. Don't cross the mound. Don't get on it. That's the pitcher's domain. And I've seen pitchers and players get into it. And I think that
did that.
Yes. And I'm less, I can't stand a fraud.
One of the things too, and I don't know if this is an unwritten rule, and I have to do more research and watch pitchers, but I've noticed a lot of pitchers, when they get done with the inning, they'll hop over the baseline. They won't step on it. I've seen several Dodgers pitchers do that, and I've never thought of.
There's a lot of players that do that.
Yeah, but I've noticed a lot of pitchers in particularly.
To this day, when I come across like a single white line that's about a base pat, I step over it. I don't step on it. From my years of playing baseball, it's just you don't step on the lines. Yeah. One of the other ones that was big for me, common sense, but it's a good rule. Don't help the opposition make a play, especially by like letting them in your dugout. So the ball's coming over and it's playable, and if they went down one step into your dugout, they might be able to make the play. Have you ever thought about this? All the players, when a player's running over towards the dugout, all the players will come up along the top step of the dugout, and most of them all have railings and nettings and that now. But Oakland, Oakland doesn't have that. It's just an open space. But have you ever noticed all the players will come up there and stand right on the top step of the dugout? And then it'll look like that they're helping so that the other player doesn't fall into the dugout and get injured. It's twofold. It looks like they're just being sportsmanlike, but they're trying to keep them from coming over to make any kind of play in their domain. Don't let them get in there and steal your flag, basically. And that one made sense to me. I was like, well, that should be a written rule. Don't let them do it. In the clubhouse, you should tell them, don't let them do it.
One of the unwritten rules that just happened with the Dodgers in San Francisco when Johnny Cueto had a no-hitter going and Hunter Pence lost the ball in the lights and the no-hitter was over. That is an unwritten rule, is that pitchers not indicate their displeasure if there's errors in the field. So kudos to Johnny Cueto because he went with it, even though I'm sure he probably wanted to be yelling at him.
He was like, mad.
What's your problem? Sure. But couldn't you see it? I could see it. But another unwritten rule that you don't show your displeasure. Although there have been guys that have, are known for getting upset with their outfielders, infielders. They don't make their plays.
Well, Gaylord Perry.
Lots of unwritten rules. Yes.
Gaylord Perry was one that was famous for that. Somebody didn't make a play, he'd turn around and stare him down, or even, he'd put his hands on his hip in disgust. And there's some of them that the unwritten rules, some people get really upset about these. These rules need to just go away. Why are they there? They ruin the game. And then other people are like, they get it. It's like some of them are fun. Some of them are just parts of the game. It's stuff that makes sense. It's like if you only play for one run, that's all you're going to get. Don't bunt with your power hitters.
Right.
Honestly, some of them are common sense. Others of them are common courtesy.
I think the unwritten rule or the biggest one in baseball goes back to something happens. If there's a slight, you're going to get hit. I think that's just across. It's not even really an unwritten rule. It's pretty much a rule. But I was looking in 1979, pitcher Ed Farmer allowed a home run to Wayne Gross and felt that Gross took too long rounding the bases. So the next time they faced each other was 4 years later. They were teammates and Farmer hit Gross during batting practice in retaliation.
Hey, what is it that, what goes around comes around? Eventually you'll get yours. Karma will catch up with you, apparently. Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the rules, if one of your players gets knocked down or gets hit by a pitch, you retaliate. And when I read that rule, that unwritten rule, and it reminded me, the first thing that popped in my head was a scene from The Untouchables, Sean Connery telling Kevin Costner, if they send one of yours to the hospital, you send one of theirs to the morgue.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
So we're halfway through the season, and the Dodgers have won a third of the scheduled games. They've already reached 20 wins. Right now, there's nobody that's even on their level. Yeah, they're alone. Even the Padres, who have been playing way above their heads, are not close.
Yeah, the Dodgers have really taken off. They seem to have a really good rhythm. We've talked about Austin Barnes in the past, but Cuz is hitting. That's huge for the team. Will Smith is back after being on the IL. He had a sore neck and I think some other sore parts, and he's back. So the games between Seattle, the Dodgers, if you look at it as a series, as a 4-game series, 2 in LA, 2 in Seattle, the Dodgers won that series. I think the Dodgers have won all of their series so far. And the first game was a lot of fun because it was the first time.
They split their first series to start the season with the Giants. They did 2 and 2.
That's right.
But yes. They haven't lost the series.
Since that time, yes, that's true. They haven't lost the series. So, yeah. The first game with Seattle was a lot of fun because you had Corey and Kyle Seager playing for the first time. And it seemed like they were trying to one-up each other, big brother and little brother. The Dodgers won that game 11-9. Combined, The Seegers were 5-8 with 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 4 runs, 2 walks, and a stolen base, which Kyle had that stolen base. So I think that was a lot of fun to watch because when Seattle came in, I don't think anybody thought that the score was going to be 11-9.
No, not when you look
Ross
at just the numbers.
Ross Stripling, he had another shaky start. He only went 3 innings, 8 hits, 7 runs, 2 strikeouts, and 3 home runs in that game. The bullpen looked really good. Pedro Baez did not have his best outing, but then I think in the next day or a couple of days after that, he was put on the IL for some groin issues. But otherwise, the bullpen is still looking really sharp. In the second game in LA, Austin Barnes scored both runs. It was a 2-1 win off of a Corey Seager hit and a Justin Turner hit. So he was running the base pads. But the star of that game was Tony Gonsolin, who went 6 innings, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 3 strikeouts, and no home runs. He's definitely made a case to have a spot in the rotation. Alex Wood is still on the IL doing some throwing, but I don't know when he'll be back in the rotation. Ross Stripling is still having issues because he also pitched in the series against the Rockies and still just not looking as good as he did on that first start of the season. He had another short 4 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and 2 home runs. So Gonsolin was sent to the alternatives, and Victor Gonzalez, who's a relief pitcher, came up. That's because Tony has options. I'm wondering if Ross should be sent to the alternative site and Tony takes his place.
Yeah, Stripling has definitely been having issues over the 6 games that he's pitched. He has a 3K to 1 walk ratio, given up 10 home runs in his 6 games. And Clayton Kershaw and Walker Buehler have combined given up 10 home runs. Dustin May's only given up 4. He's definitely having some issues, and I think that if I'm the Dodgers, I'm looking to put him in the bullpen and see what happens if that helps him. Plus, I have Tony Gonsolin. Why wouldn't I be putting that guy in regular rotation? This is, I think, the problem for the Dodgers, and it's a good problem to have, is that you have so many good pieces that it's easy to let one of them sit over there like Tony Gonsolin go back and sit at the alternate site versus bringing him in and working him harder and just say, hey, you know what? We're just going to take it easy with him. We're winning with or without him. We're overcoming the bad starts that some of these guys may have because our offense is incredible. You know, they lead the league in home runs, 59 home runs as of the weekend. They've won 11 of the last 12. Like we said, the first to 20 wins. The only problem that I saw was that they're only playing 500 ball in 1-run game, but they're 9-0 in blowouts, which is 5 or more runs. Like we've seen in the past with this team, they're definitely in sync mostly. And this is even with Cody, Max, and Jocelyn all hitting 200 or under, which isn't very respectable, but these are 3 guys who have been main pieces in the past. Those are the 3 top home run hitters from last year. And obviously Mookie has come in. He's got a 2.4 WAR. Is tearing things up. Being Mookie, being an MVP, he's picking up a lot of the load for these 3 guys. I will say that if you look around the league, nobody's really, with the exception of the Dodgers, like I said, everybody is all on the same playing field. There's the Dodgers way up here and then everybody else, and that's on every league. Not even before it was the Yankees seemed to be up there running away with it. The Yankees have fallen a bit due to injuries and things, but the Dodgers right now, they're the freight train and they're not to be stopped.
One of the interesting things is the one loss that they had against Seattle. In Seattle was the first game there. They lost 6-4, and I had texted you earlier that day and I said, Max, Cody, and Jocelyn, they need to get a fire lit under them. And in the loss, all 3 of them hit home runs. So
you want to take credit
helping
for
I don't know. But it didn't help because Julio Urias had a really bad outing. He only lasted 1.2 innings. It's the shortest length of time that a Dodger pitcher has been out. He gave up. I mean, when you look at the line, he gave up 4 hits, a run, a walk. He had 5 strikeouts, but he just did not look like he was comfortable out there. I'm not sure what it was, being in Seattle, hearing the train going by the stadium. I'm not sure, but he did not do well. And then Dennis Santana came in, and then that kind of just blew it open for the Mariners. Austin Nola, got to watch him play. He's a really good catcher, really good leader for the Mariners. They've got a lot of young players. So I think in the future, Seattle will be one in the AL West to really watch if they continue with these players that they have, because they're really good.
Yeah, that's what they've been doing for a while. Jerry DiPoto, former Angels GM, went up there and basically started tearing everything down to build it all back up. That's why Felix Hernandez, King Felix, who was a staple there for years, ended up leaving because they just weren't going to keep him with what their future looks like, what they're trying to build. So yeah, no, they have a lot there. What's the kid's name in center field? Lewis. I think he's probably rookie of the year right now anyway for the American League. He's definitely leaving his mark. I was going to ask you about Julio's start that day, because when you look at just the numbers, sure, he only did 1 2/3, but he had 5 strikeouts, and I know he let people get on base, and you'd have to have watched. I didn't see all of that game, so to me, when I look just at the numbers, and I guess this is one way you can tell that the numbers don't always tell the story, is that he didn't look that bad. 5 strikeouts out of 6 potential outs, 5 of them were strikeouts, and he only gave up 1 run. Really, when you look at it, Dennis Santana was the one who caused the damage. He got the loss in that game because he's the one that gave up all the runs, and it wasn't inherited runs. He got out of the inning he came in for Julio. So it was kind of weird. It's like, and I went back and read the story about him thinking he couldn't have been that bad. And then I read a little bit about it, but he just couldn't have been as bad as it was. But when you look uncomfortable, you're not throwing good pitches, they got him out early enough that he doesn't look as damaged as it could have been.
Right. Yeah. Because I think it could have been a lot worse if they had kept him in. He just never looked settled on the mound, throwing a lot of balls, and they were getting on base, consistent. And I was wondering what the temperature was in Seattle, because he looked really sweaty and just uncomfortable. But then I look over in the dugout, and Clayton Kershaw has a hoodie on.
Yeah, but Clayton Kershaw was wearing a hoodie at Dodger Stadium, and it was 100.
True. But
although he was at Angel Stadium and he had his jersey half open. And it was hotter there.
So maybe we can't use Clayton Kershaw as a barometer.
No, but he's not a good indicator of the weather.
Speaking of Clayton Kershaw, in the 4th game against Seattle, Clayton was on the mound. Classic Clayton. He struck out 11 in a 4-hitter over 7 innings, and he moved past Don Drysdale and has 2,493 strikeouts and is trailing all-time leader Don Sutton, who struck out 2,696 in 16 seasons. So very good company Clayton Kershaw keeps with Don Sutton. Clayton Kershaw, number 2, Don Drysdale, and number 4, Sandy Koufax. The Don. Yes.
And then of course the king, Sandy Koufax, which is funny when you think about it, because he's only 3rd in strikeouts. But you also have to remember Sandy Koufax didn't pitch as long as Don Sutton or Don Drysdale.
Right.
So I have a question for you. I was looking at the pitching. Walker Buehler looked a lot better in his last outing. 6 innings, only gave up 1 earned run, struck out 11. His ERA is at 4.32. He looked more like the Walker Buehler we were expecting and what we had seen last season. So it was like, okay, that's coming up. Clayton's been pitching really well, which made me start wondering, because Tony Gonsolin, as we talked about, sent down, has pitched well. And we know Alex Wood has been out. We don't know when he's coming back. Not sure if we want him to come back as a starter anyway.
Yeah, I'm not missing him. Yeah.
If you had to take one pitcher out between Stripling and Urias, who would you? I looked up a couple of advanced numbers, and on some things they're kind of even, like on strikeouts over 9 innings, strikeout to walk ratio, they're about even. Fielding independent pitching, which is an advanced metric, it's probably a little better indicator about what the pitcher's doing than ERA, and it's preventing home runs, walks, hit by pitches, and causing strikeouts. So think of the number as an ERA type number. The higher the number, the worse it is. Stripling's FIP is 6.81 versus 3.62 for Urias. And 3.62 these days is a respectable ERA. So his FIP is half, practically, of Stripling. Stripling's whip is 1.416 versus 1.261. And then, of course, Stripling's given up 18 earned runs versus 7 earned runs given up by Urias. So if you had to pull one to put in, to send down, or to put in the bullpen, who goes? Both of them have bullpen experience, and both of them have been effective out of the bullpen. Who's the one that you take?
Well, even before you gave me those advanced metrics, I was going to say Ross Stripling. I really like Ross Stripling, but there's something when he came out, and I think he does this quite a bit. If you look back over the past seasons, he starts out really well, and you're like, man, he really deserves a spot in the rotation. And then as he gets those continued starts, he starts to kind of break down. And it's not that he's not a good pitcher. He is. But when, he's given up, like you said, the 10 home runs, when he gives those home runs up, he always has this look on his face like, what's going on? What is happening? Like I think, is sensing something's not right. And he has been put in the bullpen before. He comes out and he's really good. He's one of those guys that I see as a starter, but at the same time, I can see him just in the bullpen. And maybe now, as he gets further into his career, maybe he is a bullpen pitcher. He's more of a reliever, middle reliever, instead of a starter, because he always comes out looking strong, and then he just peters out. And he had that one, his all-star, when he was an all-star year, but then after the all-star game, he went right back down, and I think it was back in the bullpen. So for me, even without the numbers, keeping Julio in the rotation makes more sense.
Well, that's what I think too. I think that of either one of them, and maybe Ross pitches better out of the bullpen because he's trying to prove to them he can be a starter.
Walker Buehler did not look good. And, this is not the Walker Buehler that we know and love. He came out, and I don't know if it's something with him pitching against the Rockies. He has a 5-2 overall record against the Rockies. But he said in an interview, and I'll clean it up, is that he was just tired of feeling like crap. And he watched Clayton Kershaw in Seattle make an amazing, go 7 innings, become number 2 all-time strikeouts in Dodgers. And he just was like, I don't like how I'm feeling. And then he went out against the Rockies and, had his own 11 strikeouts. And so I think that's really good when you see the veteran pitcher, the president of the rotation, Clayton Kershaw, make a start like that. It certainly helps the rotation. And I did want to mention that Mookie Betts became the first Dodger to homer twice and steal 2 bases in the same game. That was in the game against the Rockies where they won 11-3, where Kike, Corey, Mookie, Cody, Will Smith, and Max Muncy all had home runs. The Dodgers have beaten Colorado in 23 of their last 27 meetings overall, 16 of their last 17 in LA. So Dodger Stadium is like kryptonite to the Rockies. We'll see how it goes when Dodgers travel to Denver. But this was a really interesting fact that happened on Sunday. The Dodgers paid tribute to Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi and the other lives that were lost in the helicopter crash. And he wore numbers 8 and 24 during his career. Cody Bellinger hit his 8th home run, and he got his 24th hit that day. Thought that was pretty cool.
Before we look at the week ahead for the Dodgers, let's break out our brand new feature, the Player of the Week. So for the last week of Dodger baseball, who do you give those honors to?
So this was a tough one. I was split between Clayton Kershaw making this amazing start, but I have to give it to Mookie Betts. I know that in some of the games he was 0-3 and 0-4. And on one game, they gave him, as Dave Roberts said, a spa day. But overall, for the player of the week, and maybe he'll be player of the season for me, for the Dodgers. I don't know. We'll see. He's really made a huge impact on the Dodgers lineup, not only in what he does in his hitting and stealing the base and defensively, but he's made a huge impact on the other players. So probably an easy one, maybe, but I'm going to go with Mookie Betts for my player of the week.
Obviously, Mookie comes up first because of all the things that he's done and he's been doing and the effect. I agree with that. I figured, Mookie's a given. He's player of the week every week. So
that's why I hesitated, but I went with him anyway.
Well, I mean, it's not a bad pick. You're right about that because he's not just contributing on the field. He's contributing to the team as a whole. So I kind of looked at it from that standpoint and said, okay, Mookie's there. Mookie's in this different level. And then I looked to see, like, Cody. Not that us picking him as player of the week means anything to these guys, but Cody had a pretty decent week. He was 7 for 23. His average on the week was 304. 4 home runs during that time frame. So that was a good one in his last 7 days. However, I didn't go with him. I went with a guy whose last 7 days, he's been 5 for 15 with a 333 average. In his last 14 days, he's been batting 394 with 13 for 33. And that would go to Austin Barnes, because he's completely turned it around. Now he comes with baggage, because in giving Austin the player of the week because of his improvement and what he's been doing, great games, catching, defensively he's been on it. I'm going to give coach of the week to Mookie Betts for assisting. I don't even know anymore who the hitting coach for the Dodgers is, but Mookie might as well be the hitting coach on top of it. He should be drawing that pay as well, because thanks to Mookie seeing something and being willing to, the two guys work together. Austin was willing to hear what Mookie had to say, and Mookie was willing to tell him. So that worked out well. So there you go. Mookie Betts and Austin Barnes. Yeah, baby. Are our players of the week. So coming up this week, the Dodgers are going to take on their longtime rival, the San Francisco Giants, up at Oracle Park in San Francisco. They're going to have to face Johnny Cueto and Kevin Gossman, who have both been great. And this is the tightest series they have of any series they played this season. They're 4-3. They've beat them 4 times, but they've lost 3 of the 7 games so far. The Dodgers haven't been able to control the Giants like they did the Rockies, mostly the Padres, and most of the teams that they've played so far. So they get that. Then they're going to travel down to Arlington to take on the Rangers for the only 3 games they'll play them this season. The one thing that I was looking up to see is, will they have to face Lance Lynn? And I think they might on the Sunday game.
And I have heard rumors that the Dodgers are possibly interested in Lance Lynn. I don't know that will come to fruition, but it'd be interesting.
Yeah, he is definitely high on a list for teams looking for pitching. He's had such a great year down there in Texas. And, of course, the Rangers are considered to be out of it at this point and sellers at the trade deadline, which is coming up. So he's definitely, pitching's the biggest commodity every year, but this year for sure. Great week for the Dodgers. Like I said, Dodgers continue to roll on. First to 20 wins. Let's see if they're the first to 40. I'm thinking that my theme song for the Angels 2020 season will be Love Roller Coaster by Ohio players, because this team, I love them, but I'm on a roller coaster with them. And right when you think that they're about to do something good, they go, not so fast. We're going to lose this one too. In fact, I started a new diet. I call it the Angels diet. I only eat when they win. So I've lost 50 pounds. They're just, you know what? Let's start this with them. Instead of waiting for their player of the week, let's do it first so that there's some positive news, because there's not a lot of positive news, a lot of trade talk, rumors anyway. But I looked at who could be player of the week, and the first name that popped in my head was Jose Abreu.
Okay.
And then the next one was Brandon Lau.
Okay.
Or maybe Anthony Santander.
Okay.
But then I realized none of those guys are Angels.
Yeah. When you said Jose Abreu, you really threw me for a loop.
Right. He's a White Sox, by the way. And we'll probably talk about him coming up later in Around the Leg. So after everybody, there's really been two standout players this season for the Angels. David Fletcher has been on top of it all season long. He had a 16-game hit streak. He's played every game. He's played shortstop. He's played third base, second base. He's hitting over 300. He's been the most consistent of all the Angels. But if we're going to give it based on the last week or two, Anthony Rendon is the player of the week for the Angels, in my opinion. Had a 13-game hitting streak going, 6 multi-hit games, an 18-game on-base streak. He's walked 20 times. He's raised his average from 238 to 319. He's definitely the guy that you expected when you signed him. It took him a little bit, and maybe that's just the way it goes. You know, a lot of guys come to a new team, takes them a little bit to get in, but he's getting the pitches to hit, and I think that Mike Trout is providing protection for him. They're going after Mike Trout, and they'll pitch to Rendon, and Rendon's making him pay for it. So he's going to be our player of the week.
I agree with that. I think it's always easy, and maybe, my Mookie Betts pick, the Dave Fletcher pick, would be for the Angels, because he does play everywhere, and he's just, I've heard and read that, he'll tell guys in the dugout,
I'm going to do this when he gets up to bat. And then he does it. And it could be some kind of bloop single, or I'm going to hit it over the first baseman's head. And they're like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, when you look at the Angels overall, Rendon is really coming around. I'm sure there were Angels fans that were probably wanting to trade him, but he's got a 326 batting average, 453 on base percentage. His OPS is 1.011. He does have 20 walks, which shows that he's patient at the plate, and then also that maybe the opposing pitchers are a little afraid of him too.
Yeah, he's definitely showing good plate discipline. Compared to him, you look at Mike Trout, 325 at home, 233 on the road. He's only played 25 of the 29 games. He's looking at a lot of called third strikes. I'm not sure what's going on with him. That's the thing that you, like we've talked about in the past, and everybody mentions it. He's got Trout numbers, but he doesn't feel like Mike Trout. He's coming up with runners in scoring position. He's not hitting very well with runners in scoring position. And he took a 3-0 count and hit a home run early in the season. Of course, they were losing, so it was a good thing that he did that, and that unwritten rule doesn't apply. But the key to having Rendon there and a healthy Ohtani was, and then, of course, David Fletcher being in there, was that Mike Trout might see some better pitches to hit, because they've got to go through such a gauntlet, and they really do have some good hitters and all of that. Like I said, Fletcher, I posted on our Twitter, Sibling Rivalry BB without the A, video of a hit that he had where it was 2 feet above his head, it felt like, and he took it to right field for a double. what the heck? And then it was fun moment for a team that's having such a hard time because everybody was in the dugout talking about how high up it was and how he looked like a lumberjack or a samurai with his bat as a sword or a axe. Just still something that's not coming together. And obviously we know the pitching's bad. The pitching's always been bad there. With the exception of Dylan Bundy, nobody else is having a really solid year. We talked a lot about that last time. And Bundy had a bad start versus the Giants, but you got to figure something like that's going to happen. Those moments. They had a home and home just like the Dodgers did. They played the Giants. They got the one win the first night out on a walk-off by Tommy La Stella, who promptly came back in game 2 and his very first at bat hit another home run. And you thought, ooh, this might be good. They went on to lose the next 3. Of course, we faced Johnny Cueto, Kevin Gossman, who were both on it. They pitched well, and the Angels, if you can't seem to get your offense going, you're just not going to go anywhere.
I saw a quote by Joe Madden after the game 4 of that series with San Francisco where they lost 10-5. And he says, I'm not trying to pin it on anything, but as we pitch, we win. He said, we definitely have the ability to get on a hot streak, but you just can't do that unless you pitch well enough to do that. And that's what I'm looking forward to right now. So what you want is Joe Madden to come out, fire, and our pitching sucks. We need pitching. And he comes out with, I'm not trying to pin it on anything.
A little passive aggressive there, I think.
A little bit, yeah.
And I get that he doesn't want anybody to think that he's blaming any one guy. But and some of this, it's not his fault. It's the pitchers that we have. Some of it is that they couldn't attract pitchers to come here. Garrett Cole, who's from Orange County, went to Angels games, just always wanted to be a Yankee. I think that was the bigger thing, but they just couldn't give him enough. I think he would have been a Dodger if not a Yankee. I don't think that he would have come to the Angels for whatever reason. Dylan Bundy they traded for. He had no choice, but he's been the guy who's stepped up and has pitched well. Even in his next start in Oakland, a little bit of a rocky start, but then he dialed it back in. He's the guy who everybody needs to be looking at him. And of course, who's the biggest come to trade rumors? He's huge on that because everybody thinks the Angels are going to sell everybody. It's like, yeah, let's just go ahead and get rid of the best pitcher we have. Everybody on the board say, trade him and let's get and trade this guy and get a bunch of pitching prospects and let's tank the season and get a higher draft pick. It's like, I'm sorry, how about let's learn this? You could be Seattle and take forever to rebuild. It's going to get there, but you're going to have to give up a lot more than you're going to get to start. And how about having, and even Seattle has it, having a veteran pitcher? You can't throw a bunch of rookies all out there with no veteran pitcher to show them the ropes. You always want somebody who's got a clue as how things work. Throwing a lot of people out there that should know. Dylan Bundy, Julio Teheran, who has been absolutely terrible. Jose Suarez was another guy we threw out who we pitched last year because we didn't have anybody. It was too soon for him then. And while he looked a little better versus the Giants, he didn't look good either. He's still not ready to come up out of the minors. You know, they get to Oakland. They got one win out of Oakland. They should have had 2. They should have won the Sunday game. They did play off of Chris Bassett in their win. They did play small ball. No home runs that game. It was all base running and doubles. And then on the Sunday game, Shohei broke out of a slump with a 3-run homer.
Yeah, over 19.
It was a crazy, he hit it to a part of the park. I didn't even know anybody could hit it where he hit it. And I mean, it was a great shot, but it got wasted later on when they gave up the runs. Now, Bundy would pitch pretty well over that, but he left with a lead, but runners on base. Mike Myers, who's been a dumpster fire most of the time, allowed the runner to score. They go to Zennings, and Joe Adell, rookie sensation Joe Adell. If you didn't hear the sarcasm in that, please adjust your settings wherever you're listening. Has absolutely no clue what to do on the bases. He's just standing around, and there was a fly ball, comes off the base like normal, but doesn't even act like he's going to tag up and run to see if he can draw a throw, maybe get him to make a mistake or whatever. The ball is caught by the right fielder. He just kind of shuffles back over to the base and just stands there. I don't know if this kid's got it because he's not shown anything yet other than what the stories we've heard. But right now they're just stories. I never saw him play in the minors, so I don't know. But he's not doing anything. So they're still struggling. Bundy is still the best pitcher. There's just no way around that. We need to do something with Joe Adell. I thought, maybe bringing Brandon Marsh up, another highly touted minor leaguer, to give him some time. But then I thought, what if we want to trade? Because apparently the Angels are sellers. What if we want to trade him right now? It's better that nobody knows anything. They just know what the story was from before. We could have traded Adele, but now everybody's seen him. Nobody's going to want him. And of course, everybody wants Dylan Bundy. They want David Fletcher, but I don't think anybody's going to pay for David Fletcher. We'll gladly send him to Cleveland because Cleveland needs bats for Bieber, Clevenger, and Plesac.
You're not going to get Bieber.
No, but that's how valuable Fletcher is to this team.
Oh yeah.
And
He really is.
I don't see that we get a return on him that's going to make a difference in the game overall. And we're not going to get a pitcher who's going to make that big of a difference compared to what Fletcher brings to the Angels. I say trade Mike Trout before we trade David Fletcher.
Plays everywhere. I mean, it's a bold statement. Like, no, you would never do that. But when you really look at it, David Fletcher has been the bright spot for the Angels on the field. Pitching-wise, it's Dylan Bundy. But, yeah, those two guys carrying the team when you expect Mike Trout to be there. Even Albert Pujols, I mean, I know he's up there and he's kind of chasing records at this point. I mean, he's always been chasing records, but at this point, it's just he goes in there and he ties or, whatever. But they need some leadership on the team. Andrelton Simmons was activated, so I hope that
and played well good in the two games. He's brought his average up. He got some base hits. He and Fletcher are similar types of hitters, so it's good to have guys who can put the ball in play and aren't just pulling the ball. But we have a lot of those kind of hitters. Rendon and Trout are those kind of hitters where they can go opposite field. Justin Upton has been on the bench since Wednesday. Didn't play in Oakland at all. Is he going to ever come back around? I don't know. Albert had 2 games off. He did tie A-Fraud with the RBI, so now he just needs to get one more to be in front of him. What I need him to do is to start hitting home runs so that next season he can pass A-Rod. I don't care if he leaves his season or leaves his career 3 short of 700, as long as he's hit 697. That is the minimum number of home runs I will accept from Albert Pujols, or he doesn't get my Hall of Fame vote.
All right. Like I said, you have Andrelton Simmons back, so that's going to be a bright spot for the Angels. But Max Stassi is on the IL. I don't know how much that is going to affect defensively.
It's going to be a bigger offensive blow overall. He got hit in the knee area by a ball, and that took him out, hit him just in the right spot. Jason Castro's back. He's a good catcher. Don't get me wrong. He's somebody that I think you could probably trade and get something decent out of. Not great, but decent. And then Anthony Bimboom, who's the backup catcher. He's done pretty well overall, and he's good. He's solid defensively. Not great with the bat, but you don't feel uncomfortable with him being back there. And honestly, anything that he gives you is a plus. But right now, any batters outside of Fletcher and Rendon gives you is a plus. There's a lot of trade talks. The Angels are supposedly going to be sellers. We'll see what happens with that. Next week, we'll get more into it because then the aftermath of the trade deadline. Coming up this week with the Angels, though, they've got 4 with the asterisks. And here's an unusual thing. There's going to be a doubleheader in that series. And it has nothing to do with COVID. Nope. There's Tropical Storm. I think it's Tropical Storm Laura. So they're trying to get all the games in before. The Monday game will be normal. Tuesday will be a doubleheader. And then they'll play Wednesday early in the day. And instead of having a game on Thursday like they were originally supposed to, Wednesday afternoon, the Angels will get out of town and have a day off Thursday that they weren't planning. So that's probably good for them. They come home to take on the Mariners after that. So an unscheduled day off, and then they got to take on the Mariners, a team that they're about the same teams. The Mariners have double-digit wins. The Angels are one of 3 teams who do not. So we'll see what happens this week. Here's the one thing. When it comes to the trade deadline and trading with this team, I think it's a mistake unless you're going to get that haul for Fletcher, like something like that, that's going to just completely change your team. I think that this season is a wash. They could very well pick it up and go on a tear, but I think don't do anything. Unless it's a small little trade here or there, you get a prospect for peripheral player, don't go in and make any big trades. Just stand pat, stay static. This is a team that has a lot of potential, and let it see how it plays out, and go into the offseason looking to improve the team to get this pitching that you need. But don't do it now. I just don't know that it's worth it. And I think maybe if it continues on this path, I'd almost talk to Mike Trout and say, hey, why don't you just opt out? Go get some quality time at home with the new family member. Let Albert Pujols play every day to get every single opportunity to get as many hits and runs as he possibly can and make more history. Now it's time to take a look at the ATL. No, not Atlanta, around the league.
I was excited to see the Nationals and Braves had a game that was postponed. That wasn't the exciting part. It was exciting to see that it was postponed because of rain.
Yeah.
That didn't last very long because then the Mets got into it and the Subway Series was postponed because of COVID, not rain.
Yeah, positive test with the Mets. That happened in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So Miami's still connected to this, even though they didn't have any positives. And I knew that if there was a team that was going to have an issue, the Mets would be it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, out of an abundance of caution, the Subway Series was completely postponed, but not a big deal. In the coming week, I think this next weekend, the Mets and the Yankees play each other again. There'll be a couple of double headers in there, so they'll get it made up. It wasn't as big of 3 games now. It's like, oh, that's nothing compared to 17 previous.
True. Well, and then they didn't have the Subway Series. They postponed it, and as you said, it will be played. But now the COVID Series will happen.
Right.
The Mets and the Marlins.
COVID
See how that works out.
Series. Yeah, who's going to be the winner? Who'll take the COVID trophy?
And what will it look like? Will it look like that ball with all those things
With the
sticking
little
out?
Things got, what is it?
Yeah.
The COVID molecule? I don't know what it's called. The COVID germ.
Whatever, the bacteria or whatever. Will it look
Well,
like
it's a
that?
virus, so it's not a bacteria.
Oh, virus. A bacteria, that's true. So, yeah, whatever those little things are.
Yeah, the little.
We'll have to contact our science department.
Wasn't there a ball, like back in the day, that you could buy that had all and you could throw it at the wall and it would stick, and it kind of looked like the COVID thing.
I wonder if that was their model. They used that to
maybe
model the COVID. But yeah, so that's exciting. Mets Marlins in the COVID series.
And that'll be interesting to see because the NL East, only the Braves above 500 as of the weekend. Nobody else, everybody else below is 500 or below. And the Braves are working on being 500 below as well. Something's odd in the rest of baseball, where if you look at it, there's really not that many teams above 500. A lot of them are at 500. So everybody's beyond a couple of teams at the top. Obviously, the Dodgers are stratospheric right now. And I would say even the Padres seem to be in a position but a lot of the teams it's close where they could be overtaken. The Rays showed that. They are on fire. They went 8-2 this last week, or in their last 10 games. They've been playing really well, and they
it's
took over the
interesting.
AL East lead.
They did, and it's interesting because we hear about the Yankees and Judge on the IL, Stanton on the IL, DJ LeMahieu, those three big ones.
But Tampa Bay, they have 9 pitchers on the IL. They've got 4 starters and 5 relievers, and they're still finding a way to win. They are tied with the Twins for second best record in the AL. They're doing something right in Tampa Bay, staying away from Miami, I guess, is what they're
that's
doing.
the case, yeah. I think they're one of those teams that gets to fly under the radar because people just don't think about Tampa. But they've
True.
The system that was built up there by Andrew Friedman, Joe Madden had a part in it. Kevin Cash, the manager who's there, picked it up, and they've really maintained and built upon what was left for them there, and it's showing. So we'll see where they end up at, but right now they look like a team. They're projected into the playoffs. Other than that, the rest of the teams are all around 500. Everything is crazy in the 2020 season. So we'll see what happens with those guys. The same in the NL East. The Phillies, who are at the bottom of the pile or have been, don't look like a last place team. They look pretty good. Their pitching's not been bad. When did you ever see, other than his MVP season, when was the last time you saw Bryce Harper look the way he does? He looks like the guy that we all thought he was going to be. He was the National League version of Mike Trout, and then he fell off to the side. And he's picked it up. He's looking really good. In fact, I kind of got to a point where I was kind of tired of him and wasn't a big fan, but there's something that's happened. Maybe it was the whole Philly fanatic thing to start the season, but there's something about him that when I watch him play, I'm enjoying watching him play.
Yeah, he's got a spark back about him. And I got to say, I'm always interested to see his cleat and headband choice for every game.
Yeah, the other day he had lime green, neon green cleats on.
I think that was an ode to the Grouch. I'm not positive, but that's what I thought I read. Yeah, so it just brings out that personality. Maybe he's just having fun playing, and good for him.
And that shows he does look like he's having a good time. And that's the thing. I think a lot of players get in their heads so much, they forget. It's a fun game. The pressure you put on yourself can be debilitating, and they need to get over that and just have fun playing the game. And he definitely looks that. The Phillies, one of the first teams to try to make themselves better, got Heath Hembree and Brandon Workman, relievers from the Red Sox. Of course, the big question with the Phillies is, what about JT Realmuto? Are they going to sign him because he's a free agent coming up, or are they going to let him go? Or will he get traded? Dun, dun, dun.
It'll be interesting because I have heard some kind of these wacky rumors that you think, is that really going to happen this season? But why not?
I think some of the normal rules apply. He's still a free agent coming up. They don't know whether he'll sign here or not. He's the best catcher in baseball right now. He's been having a fantastic year. They could probably get a good haul for him. But if you're trying to build something, sign him to a long-term extension. And you've got him and Bryce Harper. Your pitching staff is looking pretty good. Phillies could make a run at it and be NL East team of the future. So one thing I noticed when I was looking at the Buffalo Blue Jays, other than the fact that Bo Bichette is out for who knows how long, Hyun-Jin Ryu, who it seems like every time I catch a game, two things. It seems like the Rays and the Blue Jays are always playing each other. And then Hyun-Jin Ryu is always pitching every time I catch them playing each other. And Hyun-Jin Ryu's WAR is a game better than Mike Trout. And that's all I got to say about that. All right, let's move on to the Central, where this guy named Shane Bieber continues to be dominant. 65 strikeouts so far. He leads the majors in 9 categories. The Indians are 7-3 over the last 10, but mostly it's all about Shane Bieber.
Yeah, whatever, 5-0, 1.11 ERA, blah, blah, blah.
I guess he's become that guy who is, like we said, with Mookie Betts or David Fletcher or other players. Yeah, I know what he did. He's just fantastic, and we just need to stop talking about it.
That's right.
The Indians, when you think about it, though, the Indians really have gotten where they are with the pitching only. Their hitting has been abysmal, and they need some like real outfielders. They need some outfielders that can hit. I think I read that their outfield average is like under 200 batting average for all three outfielders.
Well, the Tigers finally beat the Indians for the first time since April 10th, 2019, ending the longest winning streak by one team over another since the Orioles' 23-game winning streak over the expansion team, the Royals, from 1969 to 1970. It also ended Detroit's 9-game losing streak this season. So a good feeling for the Tigers to beat the Indians. That's quite a streak if you haven't won since April 10th of 2019. And I'm sure did Shane Bieber probably didn't pitch in that series, so that's why they won.
That must have been why.
I guess that's probably why.
But see, the pitching, even with Clevenger and Plesac out, the guys who have come in have done well. They're pitching pretty well. Rookies are coming in and stepping up. It's kind of weird because you look at it, there's so many stories about good players or guys coming out of nowhere. Nelson Cruz is a perfect example of a guy who is just on fire. 10 home runs, leading Minnesota with 343 batting average. And then you go from there, and his teammate, former Dodger Kenta Maeda,
who always seems to be pitching when I watch the Twins.
And the Twins are always playing the Royals.
Yeah.
In this case, though, the Twins were playing the Brewers. Kenta was on the bump. How did that end up again? I don't really...
Well, Kenta had a no-hitter through 8 innings.
Twins were up 3-0.
He threw 8 consecutive strikeouts to set a new franchise record for the Twins. So Kenta Maeda is in the record books for his new team. He had 12 Ks in that game.
And then his no-hitter was lost at the top of the ninth. Just a bloop single over the head of second baseman. And that was it. And then it went to Zennings.
But it shouldn't have gone to Zennings. It's crazy how things go. And this is where, if you're a fan of wins and losses for pitchers, that it's not fair. Because Kenta leaves the game. That one hit came around to score thanks to Taylor Rogers, who came in and promptly let that guy score. So that's charged to Kenta. So Kenta doesn't even get the shutout over that 8 innings. He's charged with the run. But he doesn't get a win because Rogers blows the save. So that just goes
one
down.
job.
Honestly, they should have just left him in there. He probably would have won it. So Taylor Rogers loses control. But what happened?
Well, he loses control, and then there's 2 more pitchers, I think, that come in and take over. It goes into Zennings. It's 12. I think it went 12 that game. And the Twins held on to win 4-3, but they were leading 3-0.
Kenta was having an awesome game, and they took him out, and their bullpen came in, and I felt bad for Kenta watching him. He was at the top of the dugout, and all he could do was just stand there. And he's got this great smile, and he just kind of had a smile like, what do I do? Because he
was smiling like when it was broken up. He just kind of smiled when they came out there. He was gracious about it, went off. He'd have got a huge ovation from a crowd had there been one. Yeah, it was at that point, what do you do? Stand on there and glare at the pitchers giving up? I mean,
put your hands on your hips.
Yeah, right. Do you throw something at Taylor Rogers when he comes in the dugout? Throw your glove at him? Throw a helmet at him? What were you thinking? You ruined my game, loser. He may have been thinking all those things, but
in Japanese, he could have said it and nobody would have known.
True enough. So yeah, Kenta Maeda, really, he's another one of those guys where when you look at it, he's really shows to have been a good acquisition by the Twins. And I mean, he's leading the majors in WHIP, 0.632 hits per 9 innings. He's only giving up 4 hits per 9 innings. There's guys who are giving up 10 hits per 9 innings and more. He's only giving up 4. He leads the MLB in that category.
And I know I've said it before, but this move to the Twins, the trade, it just was a really good trade all the way around, but especially for Kenta. He's a great pitcher. He pitched really well for the Dodgers. They did put him in the bullpen, which he never really liked, but he came out and did a good job when he was in the bullpen. But now he's a starter. He knows he's a starter, and it's really showing in the way he's pitching.
He's not letting anything get in his way. This is what he wanted. No. He's not taking it for granted. He's producing.
Yep. Now he's part of franchise history.
Yep. So talk about production. Let's go to Chicago, to the south side. Visit him with bad Leroy Brown, if he's still around. Or better yet, I'm going to give you some names. Eloy Jimenez, Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, and that Abreu guy that I mentioned earlier.
Oh, the player of the week for the Angels. Yeah.
Right. Jose Abreu. Now, the reason I had to stop for a second is because for some reason I wrote down Bobby Abreu. He was an Angel at one time, played for the Phillies. Not the same guy. Jose Abreu. These guys are like the lumber company down in Chicago. They're hitting home runs at a crazy pace. They're putting themselves in a position right now. They're tied for second with Cleveland, but they're able to, with good pitching from Dallas Keuchel, from Lucas Giolito, they're being led by those guys. They are on a tear. Cleveland's been playing well as also. So right now, all three of those teams look like they could probably get into the playoffs. But the White Sox are definitely a team to watch. And if not this season, next season.
Yeah, and Jose Abreu tied a major league record against the Cubs by homering in 4 straight at-bats. 43rd time that's happened in baseball history.
That's crazy what they're doing. And it seems like when one of them doesn't do it, somebody else is doing it. And these are the guys who went back to back to back to back. 4 home runs in 4 consecutive at-bats that we talked about last week. Now, I was thinking, as we slide over from the Central into the West, that if you wanted to have a fun side thing, how about a home run derby between the White Sox and the Padres?
Ooh, that would be fun to watch.
The Dodgers lead baseball in Major League Baseball in home runs with 59. The Sox and the Padres are tied with 55, and especially after the week that the Padres had, renaming them Slam Diego was a no-brainer. Normally you hear stuff like that and you go, what? Come on, give me a break. This is the truth. 4 days in a row, they got grand slam. Started by the one we talked about earlier in the show from Fernando Tatis Jr. And they ended up with a total of 5 grand slams in the week. Unheard of.
Yeah, it's 6 games. It's an MLB first. 5 grand slams, 6 games. And by different players. Even Lazy Manny hit a grand slam.
Who all hit them? Tatis Jr., Will Myers, Machado, and Eric Hosmer hit the 4 in a row. They took a day off, and then the guy who we couldn't remember his last name, just knew that it took up all of his jersey and some other guys, Jake Cronenworth. who is a guy who could probably be looking at National League Rookie of the Year honors, potentially, hit a grand slam. It's as if they grow on trees in Slam Diego. They're tearing it up still. Obviously, the Dodgers are on a bigger tear. We know the Rockies have fallen off. The Rockies got swept by the Dodgers, so that didn't help. So they've dropped in the standings. And what going into the week was 6 NL teams being above 500 and 4 of them being from the West, which at the time was the Dodgers, the Padres, the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks. It's kind of funny because we were feeling bad when we thought about it. Last week we didn't mention the Diamondbacks were on a tear. We mentioned that they swept the Asterix. And in the time frame that it took us to remember that they were on a tear and think we should mention them because we felt like we slighted them, they went right back to where they were before.
They lost 5 in a row.
So at this point, just the Dodgers and the Padres are above 500 in the West. And we'll see how the rest of the West shakes out as these other guys, the Rockies, Giants, and Diamondbacks, have to play more of each other throughout the season and have to play the Dodgers.
Well, the nice thing with the Padres and Slam Diego is they swept the Asterix, which is always a celebration across baseballdom. The Asterix were outscored 22-8. Not much more to say. 22-8.
I saw a meme the other day where Jose Altuve, who's a midget, hugging Carlos Correa, and he's got looks like a sad look on his face, and he's like, "I don't like Slam Diego. I never want to come back here again." Was what the caption was. So yeah, that's it. The Asterix had been surging till they met the Padres.
They got slammed by Slam Diego. It's interesting. The Diamondbacks in Colorado have a series coming up. And like I said, Diamondbacks had lost 5 in a row. The Rockies lost 7 in a row. When I do get a chance to watch the Rockies, it's the Rockies feed. And the announcers were like, after they played the Dodgers, they get to where they're just sharing recipes by the end of the game because they have nothing to talk about. But they're hopeful going to the desert, as they said. They said, well, the Rockies play good in the desert. So we'll see how that series shapes up and where that ends.
I do want to go back to the Central for just 1 second to congratulate the Pittsburgh Pirates on a winning streak. They haven't had many of those, and they only have 7 wins. So I guess when I'm lamenting about the Angels, I could say, well, at least we're not the Pirates.
You could say that. Yeah.
But now watch, the Pirates will go on a run. And so before we check out today, we wanted to take a quick look at the possibilities of trades with the trade deadline coming up here in just a couple of days. There's a lot of teams that they're talking about are sellers, the Angels, the aforementioned Pirates, the Red Sox, the Royals, and the Mariners. The first 3 teams are all in single-digit wins. So, of course, everybody's thinking that they're going to somebody. The thing is, though, who are you going to trade? The Pirates don't really have anybody that they're going to trade. I think there's a reliever, Keona Keel, might be a guy. Josh Bell, you going to trade him for what? And why would anybody take on his contract? So that's the question. The Red Sox have already traded 2 of their bullpen pieces to the Phillies. Who's really going to get traded? We talked about the Angels have been contacted about Fletcher and Bundy. I've heard Trevor Bauer's name a lot. And Trevor Bauer connected to the Dodgers.
Well, I've also heard Trevor Bauer connected to the Angels.
Well, bring him on. But I don't know for whom.
Right. And I thought it was interesting. I was reading about Alex Wood and how he's coming back and throwing. And the way the beat writer, one of the beat writers for the Dodgers, wrote, the Dodgers will be able to see Alex Wood throw before the trade deadline.
That was interesting to think. Would they trade him?
I've also heard to get Clevenger as a Dodger, but then you would trade Gavin Lux, Josiah Gray were two of the names that popped up. Gavin Lux always pops up in these trade rumors. Yeah, I don't think the Dodgers really are going to do anything, that they really need anything.
Unless it makes complete sense. I did hear Andrew Friedman the other day say that. Unless it makes sense, I don't know what we're going to do. But that's one of those things. They don't need any bats. So it's not like they're going to go down there. And really, when you think about it, as far as what we've seen potential-wise, if you really need a bat, you've got Gavin Lux, who's shown he can hit.
Yeah.
So you have him down there to bring up. I think that if they were going to do anything, they would look at pitching. And like we said earlier, a lot of the guys who are on here, with the exception of like Real Muto, who could move, I don't think it's going to happen, but Real Muto would be one of those guys. But Trevor Bauer, he's somebody that, a team that needs a starter. The Angels obviously need him, but are they going to go out for him now, or are they going to wait and try to pursue later on? Lance Lynn from the Rangers we brought up. Robbie Ray from the Diamondback, another pitcher who's been okay. And I don't think that he's going to bring a lot, but he's still a better pitcher than a lot of them out there. He's not having an awesome year, but he's been okay. I think that sometimes when your team is losing, it just becomes symptomatic. It's hard to go out there and be the one guy who wins every week or every time you go out and pitch when you have no support. So there's that problem. We know Mike Clevenger, and I've heard that he's probably more likely than Zach Plesac.
And we didn't mention this, but Steven Strasburg of the Nationals is out. He's going to have surgery. He has carpal tunnel syndrome. Mm-hmm. So that would be another piece to see, would the Nationals bring somebody in to pitch in the rotation or just leave it alone where they're at? Because he's a big piece of their rotation.
I did see, and this may be jokingly, but getting Alex Verdugo back to the Dodgers from Boston. I think Alex Verdugo is a bright spot in Boston, probably the only bright spot, so they're going to hold on to him.
Yeah, I wouldn't think you'd let him go. He's been a good addition to Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers. So I think he's one guy that you hold on to. If the Red Sox are going to trade somebody, I think they're going to go with probably like Mitch Moreland or somebody like that, to somebody who needs a bat.
And it's interesting that Taijuan Walker is mentioned. He pitches for Seattle. He had Tommy John surgery. He's back. He's doing really well. He's the elder statesman in a way of the pitching staff for Seattle, if you look at it that way. And so I just don't see him. I know there's interest in him because he's doing so well, but I don't see Seattle giving him up. I could be wrong, but he's got a 1-year deal with them. He pitched really well against the Dodgers.
Well, if there's one team that would do that, the Mariners would be a team to send him on his way. Plus, if he's done at the end of this season, why not get something for him? If he's got value out there. And
yeah,
I was just thinking, when you were talking about the Nationals, Kevin Gausman from the Giants, been pitching really well. That might be a guy that the Nationals could trade for, and the Giants could get a bat out of it, especially an outfield bat to cover for Pence's departure.
I think any bat in place of Pence is going to be an improvement.
Probably so. And then I think one other guy that I was watching around and thinking about these teams who have players to get rid of, or not to get rid of, but that could be sellers on. Trevor Rosenthal from the Royals, who's a relief pitcher. He's on a 1-year deal. He's come back, lots of injuries over the last couple of years. 1.59 ERA, 15 strikeouts in 11 and a third innings. He throws at about 98. So he might be, for somebody who needs bullpen help or closer help, Trevor Rosenthal may be the way to go. And we'll look at all the trades that went down next week.
And on a bright spot for baseball, TV ratings are up for the MLB. The increases are seen in both national ratings like ESPN and across regional sports channels. And young adults, females and males ages 18 to 24, have driven most of the overall viewing increases. Males 18 to 24 are up 26%. Females ages 18 to 24 are up 41%. Overall viewership across the 25 primary markets where a team resides rose 120,000 to 2.8 million viewers, or a 4% increase. For baseball, this is huge. Viewership has gone down, and especially because right now you've got the NHL playing and the NBA playing in their playoffs. Good job for baseball, and I guess people like watching with no fans and the cardboard cutouts and teddy bears.
And that'll do it for this week's Sibling Rivalry Baseball podcast.
Remember, you can find us on our website, siblingrivalrybb.com, and on Facebook and Instagram at Sibling Rivalry BB.
We're also on Twitter at Sibling Rivalry BB without the A. Email us, show@siblingrivalrybb.com. We'd love to hear what you think, so subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to our podcast.
Next week on Sibling Rivalry Baseball, is your favorite player sleeping in a new town?
And if we can find Josh Fields, we'll ask him what it's like to be traded.
You're out!